Welcome to another episode of Mental Health Mondays. We are on episode number 13. Holy moly. We on Mondays talk to those who are either in the professional space for mental health, someone who experiences or lives with a mental health challenge, or mental health advocates. And today, my special guest is Seth Davis, and I'm so excited to bring him on. So let me add him in here. Hi, Seth.
Hello.
Thank you so much for joining me. I really appreciate it.
You're welcome. Yeah, it's great to be here, and thank you for inviting me.
Yeah, I just noticed with my camera angle, you could see all my toys that were in the background. So tell a little bit about yourself to the audience.
So I live here in Denver, Colorado. I am an adult sleep coach. So I work with adults who are, either struggling to sleep, they've had insomnia for a long time, or just have dealt with sleep for a long time, or they sleep okay, but just wanted to improve their sleep. So I've been doing this for about 4 years now, and um, kind of got into it because I was struggling with insomnia myself for probably about 15 years. I'm very familiar with what my clients are going through when it comes to worrying about sleep and sort of having these, negative behaviors around sleep that are contributing to the problem. And so I just remember all of those things. And so it's really rewarding to, work with people through their journey from, where they are right now to seeing them being able to, experience the relief of sleeping through the night and feeling well rested during their days. So that's kind of the rewarding part of it. And yeah, I love doing it on a daily basis.
That's awesome. I was actually really excited that happened to be talking. For whatever reason, I feel like I haven't really been sleeping that much lately. I don't know if it's I need a new pillow, like the bed's not. We have an adjustable bed, so I'm
Sure.
like maybe it's not adjusting right. Like I don't know what's going on, but my mind just keeps going, going, going. And I do have a lot of like tips and like or tools that I can use, but for whatever reason, they haven't really been working lately. So I was like, I happen to be talking to Seth today, which I think is
Oh,
pretty awesome.
good timing.
Yeah. And I know, like, when you and I originally talked, I really had some questions that came up around my fiance specifically. And I know we talked about, like, it could it's like so many different things, right? Why people don't sleep.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it really can be it can be anything as small as your pillow's uncomfortable that can cause a little bit of discomfort to you're starting a new job and you're stressed about that. Even though it's an exciting thing, it's also can be stressful. Just we have so many things that can happen in our lives that can cause this little disruptions to our sleep. And a lot of times, um, it's kind of how we react to it that kind of determines whether it just stays a short-term problem or becomes a longer-term problem. And so, that's where I see a lot of people who come to me is where they're in this cycle where, something happened in their life, they started having sleeping problems, and then you kind of start focusing on the sleep issues, and it's, what's going on here? What can I do to solve it? Do I need to do this? And so that's when you start kind of, worrying about sleep, and that makes it harder to sleep, and then it's just a cycle that continues to go. So a lot of people, when I start working with them, they are trapped in that kind of worry about sleep cycle.
That makes sense because you're like, well, I know I'm laying here and I need to go to sleep. I need to go to sleep. I need to go to sleep. And then you're like, I can't freaking go to sleep. Like, why can't I go to sleep? So then you're just like perpetuating the issue almost in a way because
Yeah.
now you're focused on not sleeping versus sleeping.
Exactly. Exactly. So yeah, you're right. Just, I mean, so many different things can cause the problems, but so it is part of just kind of getting to the root of the issue. Like, if it is the pillow that's causing discomfort, we can obviously find a better fitted pillow. But if it's, stress or anxiety or a medical issue or things like that, it's going to take more professional assistance to kind of get to the bottom of it. So
Yeah, that makes sense. And I know obviously we're on this mental health Mondays and sleep is huge for your mental health.
yes. Yeah. So sleep, basically, I've heard it kind of described as your therapist during the night because it helps you kind of process your emotions. It helps you, kind of process the experiences that you went through during the day. It helps to protect you against stress. So kind of, just deal with with the stresses of the day, kind of protect yourself. Um, it just really just has so many benefits for helping you to kind of deal with your emotions and help you to kind of regulate everything. So again, it can become a cycle where, if you're having a little bit of depression or anxiety or something, it can cause you to lose some sleep. And when you lose some sleep, it can kind of worsen the symptoms of the depression, anxiety, or whatever it is. And so that can become a cycle too. So sometimes it's kind of a bi-directional relationship where, a lot of mental health issues can impact sleep, and sleep can impact mental health issues. So kind of working on both and getting to a balance with both can help you to sleep better and improve your mental health. But you're right, sleep is just so important for mental health and physical health and pretty much everything else.
And I'm assuming, like, on the flip side, those people that may be severely depressed that are sleeping too much, that can probably have a similar effect, right?
Yeah, because especially when you are not, when you're sleeping a lot, then you're not getting as much sunlight during the day. You're not getting as much, physical activity, and those are all things that can improve your mood and kind of help your mental health. And so you're kind of missing out opportunities to be social and kind of, fill that part of your bucket for your life. So long sleeping can definitely, impact those parts of your life and your health in general too.
Interesting. And I don't know if it was you and I were talking about it, but or I saw an article or something about shift workers or people that work overnight, how that can be detrimental to their mental health potentially too.
Yes, definitely mental health and physical health. Just because, when you're working shifts and your schedule is fluctuating a lot, and sometimes you're working during the night, sometimes you're working during the day. You're basically kind of going against your body's natural rhythms. Your body wants to wake up when the sun comes up in the morning and go to sleep when the sun goes down. So when you're not following that pattern, or you're kind of all over the place with your schedule, then you're going against your circadian rhythm, basically your internal clock. And so they've showed that when you do that, your mood can be lower, your energy can be lower. You can feel just groggy a lot, hard to focus, and for your physical health too. Your immune system can be lower. So just in general, shift work can be rough on the body and the brain too.
Yeah, and that was another point that I think I watched some webinar about it, like, even after you and I talked, and I was like, "Oh my gosh," like, I just talked to Seth about this too. They were talking about how even, like, um, man, the it just went out of my mind, but it was about, like, being regular in your schedule and how important that can be also.
Yeah, it's so important, and like it's basically, the way I look at it is kind of giving instructions to your body. It's like, your body takes all these signals. So in the morning, it takes in light, so sunlight. So that basically tells your body start producing all these hormones and chemicals that are going to help you to wake up and become alert and, have energy throughout the day. And so your body kind of relies on that signal. The same when you go to sleep at night, when you dim the lights and then turn out the lights, that's another signal that's to your brain that, hey, we're winding down for sleep, it's getting dark outside, it's time to get drowsy and fall asleep. So if we don't give ourselves those cues, or if we give themselves at kind of just random times throughout the day or nights, then it basically confuses our body, and then we feel it. It's like it shows up in our sleep, it shows up in our how we feel during the day, our energy levels. So just the more consistent we can be with our schedules, just the more our body knows what to do and when to do it.
Yeah, I mean, I have a 6-year-old, and so I know that his sleep is important, and at times we are not following the schedule that we need to, and I definitely notice it in the morning when I wake him up, or on the days like last Thursday and Friday, he didn't have school, but he still woke up at the same exact time almost every single day. So it was interesting to me, even though we kind of threw the schedule off a little bit, he was like naturally wanting to be back on that schedule.
Yeah, and that's a good thing. That shows that his body, basically knows the instructions and knows, okay, so at this time, what 6:30 or whatever, that's when we wake up. And so it's a good thing when your body knows when to wake up naturally. And it's when we kind of it's like a lot of adults, we wake up at 6 a.m. for work on the weekdays. On the weekends, we wake up at 8 or 9 p.m. a.m. And so our body is just like, okay, so are we living on Pacific time, or are we living on Eastern time? Like, this part of the week. So, when we're kind of basically switching time zones like that, there's a term for it called social jet lag, which is where, when we maintain different sleep schedules throughout the week, then our body is confused. So we actually go through symptoms that are similar to real, travel, as if we were traveling through multiple time zones, and our body, reacts and feels the same way. So
Interesting.
So it's good when our body just knows what to do. Like I said, when to do it.
Yeah, that is interesting too when you think about those that travel often potentially for work or for play, that I know when you go out traveling and you're like, "Oh man, like I'm down for the whole first day," and then
Oh, yeah.
finally I get everything back and get my energy the next day. But
Yeah, and especially those bigger trips. Like, I still remember I went to Hawaii a couple of years ago, and just it took me a couple of weeks to fully adjust to I think it's a 6 hour time difference. And so usually they say it's 1 to 2 days to adjust for every hour of time zone difference as you're traveling. But yeah, even just big travels can really affect how long it takes you to get back to your normal self.
gotcha. And another interesting thing that always pops in my head is the 5 second rule, that book. And she talks about how your brain literally has 5 seconds to make a choice. And this goes with like hitting the snooze button. Specifically, they talk about it in the book of like, don't hit the snooze button. You have 5 seconds to get yourself out of bed. Otherwise, you're going to fall back to sleep and it's not going to be very good sleep. And so when I started doing not hitting the snooze button and actually training my brain within those 5 seconds to make a choice to get out of bed, it made a huge difference in my sleep, I felt like.
That is really interesting. I think I'm going to write this down because I have not read that book, but I like the sound of it.
Yeah, it's the 5 second rule from, I think it's Mel Robbins or
Okay.
Brene Brown. I'm mixing up the two right now, but I'm pretty sure it's Mel Robbins. But yeah, the 5 second rule. And they talk about how your brain works in 5 second chunks.
Mhm.
And so, especially in the morning and with people that have challenges with sleeping or just getting up in the morning, is you literally have 5 seconds to get yourself out of bed. And so I didn't read it. I listened to it on Audible. After I listened to the book, I was like, oh man, that makes so much sense. And so I was trying it and it's true.
Yeah. So
So
you've noticed since you started doing it, you've noticed that is it kind of changing your sort of your willpower or self-discipline, just making it a little bit easier for you to, make those quick decisions to choose the little bit better path?
yeah, I mean, in pretty much everything that I do too, because I am not by nature, but I procrastinate.
Mhm.
And I know that about myself. And so when I get into those type of cycles, I'm like, I've got to make a decision to do something different. And I
Sure.
kind of try to use that rule as much as possible. But it was more so because I've always said that I'm not a morning person. Like that was my thing. I was
Yeah.
like, the thing that I held on to for years and years and years. I was like, I'm not a morning person. I was angry. I mean, I know when I had a team at a corporation, I they knew when I came in, I needed to sit at my desk, I needed to get my coffee, and then they could talk to me. But
Yeah.
ever since I've been really trying to focus on that rule, I'm actually now a morning person, which is really cool. So
Okay, it's the thing I love about hearing that, and I actually, yeah, I'm gonna have to read this book because it sounds like a great concept. But the thing I like about that is that I work with a lot of people with sleep, and so we call them a negative sleep thoughts. So kind of thoughts that are specific to sleep, where just like I'm not a morning person, I'm just not a good sleeper. Um, I need 8 hours of sleep, or else like bad things are going to happen to my health. If I don't sleep well tonight, then I'm gonna have a terrible day tomorrow. So kind of these negative sleep thoughts. And so I work with people to kind of look at those thoughts and kind of turn them around a little bit. So kind of see, how are they false? Is this thought false? Is it just not accurate? Is it is the science behind it false, or is it just like overly negative? So for example, I'm just not a morning person. Well, are there ways that we can turn it around, like you said, and kind of change our behaviors a little bit, get the motivation to change a little bit, and then prove to ourselves that we can, actually can be a morning person. So it's just showing that the proof that you were able to change that thought is great, and that's kind of what I go for when I'm working with people too, about their kind of negative sleep thoughts.
Yeah, that's so important too. I love that you make that shift. I mean, like, it's a mindset shift, right? And that's
Yeah.
something that I talk about all the time, just in whatever I talk about, is that mindset shift of like, I don't have to own that I'm not a morning person, right? Like, I can
Mhm.
be a morning person and I've figured out how to be that person. So I
Yeah.
love that you do that more of a deep dive, other than like, well, is your pillow off? Blah, blah, right? Like, I feel like those are such small things, but you actually do like the deep work of it, may be a mindset or the negative talk that you're having.
Yeah. Because I mean, I think so many of those things are, some of those things are important. Like the sleep hygiene stuff is important, and it can make a big difference to make sure that the temperature in your room is more comfortable or things like that. But if you are, if you're anxious about sleep, and as we get closer to nighttime, you start worrying, am I going to be able to sleep tonight? Am I going to, and you start kind of worrying about, you start fearing the anxiety itself. That's not going to be improved by changing the temperature in your bedroom, whatever. It's that's that's, so that's kind of, for a lot of people, is the root of the problem, is those negative beliefs or thoughts about sleep,
Well, that's good.
or emotions.
Yeah, and it's good that you jump in there too.
Yeah.
One of the things that I know that we talked about originally too was like, people take sleeping pills or like ZQL or melatonin or whatever it might be.
Sure.
So when they come to you, do you find that that is generally a crutch in their pattern of sleep?
Yes. Yeah, I see a lot of that. A lot of prescription medications, or Benadryl, or ZQL, or melatonin, or things like that. So a lot of different types of substances, alcohol, cannabis, CBD. So there's a lot of them, and yeah, for most people, um, they have become crutches. And I think we probably talked about this, but with a lot of these things, if they do have any effect at all, a lot of things we can become tolerant to it pretty quickly. So, for example, with Ambien, we build up this tolerance within a few weeks, which is really all that those things are supposed to be, prescribed for, just a few weeks to get you to kind of shift your schedule a little bit. But so we build up this tolerance, and at a certain point, these substances really aren't doing anything for us at all. Like they're, we've gotten such a high tolerance, so they're not really doing anything, but we've become sort of mentally reliant on them, and we start to develop another sleep thought, which is something like, I won't be able to sleep if I don't take whatever this substance is. And so yeah, so a lot of times I kind of ask people, like, so take a look at this melatonin or something, and if you went on a vacation and you left the melatonin at home on accident, you didn't have it with you, would you freak out, and would you be like, I'm not going to be able to sleep tonight because I don't have my melatonin? And if so, then that's definitely shows that it's become something that you're reliant on. That you put your trust in your ability to sleep in that thing rather than yourself. So when we're working together, a lot of it is starting to show people that you can sleep without whatever this thing is. And so sometimes it's a little bit, the journey to get there is a little bit rough, because you have to, obviously you have to go without it to show yourself you can sleep without it. But once you start getting a little bit of proof, then your mind kind of opens up, and you're able to say, okay, maybe my body can do this. Like maybe I can handle sleep without taking melatonin or alcohol or whatever it is.
Wow. And it's so interesting to me because I I mean, there were points in time in my life that I was prescribed like Ambien, and I've taken melatonin, and I've tried like the holistic, I guess, realm of um capsules, sleep
Mhm.
capsules, and I haven't ever really wanted or like needed it all the time. So for
Yeah.
me, it always just makes me curious that there are people who need those things. But like you said, like substance abuse, right? Like that is a crutch or a coping mechanism sometimes for people in life in general. But
Sure.
being able to have a conversation like with you or another sleep coach or, and figure out like what's that deep underlying thing that's making you want to potentially like drink every night to pass out or fall asleep. So,
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And sometimes, sometimes that can take, talking to a therapist or something to really dig into those issues. Because a lot of times that is kind of one of the root causes. So what can you do to get to the bottom of that? But um, yeah, I mean, personally, I just remember when I was going through these issues myself. I remember going to the doctor and getting the Ambien prescription once, another one for something called trazodone, and also, like you said, trying the herbal things. And I just remember thinking, I was kind of scared of the Ambien. Like, what am I going to do while I'm passed out on Ambien? And B, I just remember thinking, do I really want to? Is it really realistic? I'm going to rely on a substance for the next 70 years of my life to sleep or whatever. So if do I want to go down the road and get hooked on something now, or do I want to just figure out, okay, what can we do to fix this without any medications or anything, so that over the long term we're natural, we're confident in our ability to sleep, and so yeah, I didn't just couldn't picture myself taking Ambien for the next 50 years.
yeah, I mean, it can be addicting in a way for sure. I mean, and prescription more so. So,
Mhm.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Well,
and
oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say, yeah, just like I said, for a lot of those things, I think the real they're only meant to be prescribed for like 2 or 3 weeks, and some people end up just taking them for years. So um, yeah, so it's kind of a cycle that it's better if you don't get caught up in that.
Definitely. So, if somebody came to you, what would they expect or what?
Okay, here are I've identified these 10 things we're going to work on over our time together. So for this first week, we're going to start with a couple, like two to three different things. I'm going to explain to you why this is potentially affecting your sleep, and how we can make a better change for it, and kind of the science behind it. And then I check in with people just to see what we need to adjust. We kind of just follow this week by week process where we're working to change these thoughts about sleep, or working to build these better habits, or um, maybe we do look at your sleep environment and make a few changes to that. So it's kind of just this kind of week by week thing where we're just gradually reducing your stress and your anxiety around sleep, to make it easier for you to rest at night, and then just improving any kind of behaviors and habits that you might have that are kind of standing in the way of better sleep. So yeah, so in general, that's just the goal, is to make sleep easier for you, because it doesn't need to be challenging. It doesn't need to be, we don't have to try hard to sleep or worry about sleep. It just, if you think about the best sleepers that the people who are just really good sleepers, and if you ask them, what do you do to sleep better, a lot of them will say, I just don't, I just close my eyes and it just happens. So, but then there are those of us who think that we have to take all these different kinds of cocktails and have the conditions exactly right and have an elaborate routine before bedtime. And in that case, sleep seems hard. It seems like we have to do so much to sleep. So it's kind of just making it easier for you so that you can just relax and let it happen at night.
That's awesome. And I know you said that you do it over time. So it's not like you're going to have one session and be like, okay, great. So go do your thing, right?
No, yeah, it's usually I work with people between 4 and 6 sessions. So that doesn't have to be weekly. Maybe it's every 2 weeks, but so generally within like 6 to 8 weeks is the amount of time I work with people. We're usually able to see some pretty good results in that time, where the sleep has become easier, and they're just they're not spending their days worrying about sleep and thinking about sleep, but it's just something that happens for them, basically.
That's awesome. And one question that popped in my head as you were saying that is, do you feel like potentially our sleep patterns or habits come from when we're younger, or is it something that develops over time, or is it maybe both?
I think it can be both. I think a lot of times some of the habits that we built in our younger years, or um, just the schedule we kept or whatever, can sort of, in a way, just sort of trickle into our adulthood. So just some of those things kind of stay constant. But then, some of it is introduced as adults too. For example, my problem started a lot. My problems got a lot worse when I became went into the real world, became a journalist. I had deadline pressure, and I had just like pressure to perform, and a weird odd schedule and all these things. So all those things kind of gave me the stress to have trouble sleeping. I would wake up in the middle of the night thinking about the article I had to write. I started you know, going to sleep really late or really early, or just adjusting my bedtimes all over the place. And so, those are kind of behaviors that I adopted as an adult that kind of fed the insomnia. So I think it's a matter of both. I think childhood influences can stick with us, but also just circumstances in our adulthood, or habits that we adopt, can also affect things.
Yeah, that makes a great point as far as depending on what you do as a career,
Mhm.
could definitely play a role in it too. What are for those that maybe are like, oh my gosh, I can't sleep at all. Like, what do I do? Do you have any quick or simple tips or tricks that they could utilize now that might benefit them?
Yeah, so I would say probably one of my biggest tips has to do with your kind of schedule. So, as we talked about, consistency is very important. So, if you can pick a time in the morning to wake up that's consistent, and do that as much as possible throughout the week, that's going to be very helpful for you, especially if you tend to kind of fluctuate all over the place. And when you go to bed at night, try to make sure that you're drowsy before you go to sleep. So, try to make sure that you're to the point where your eyelids are kind of drooping a little bit, your head's nodding, so that before you go to bed. Because a lot of people go to sleep too early, and they get into bed and they're just still like kind of wide awake, and they're still, their mind is still racing and everything. It's because they just are not yet tired enough to get into bed.
Mhm.
So if you can kind of just let yourself get to the point where you're pretty drowsy before you get into bed, that's going to really, cut down on the time that you spend in bed awake, and your mind racing, and trying to will yourself to get drowsy and fall asleep.
So, watching TV and playing on your phone and doing something on the laptop in your bed is probably not that beneficial.
Right. Yes. The more things you can remove from your bed that you would normally do while you're awake, the better. So, see people, yeah, doing the work in bed, or eating in bed, or playing video games in bed or whatever. And those things are better left for another room, like not in the bedroom, not in the bed.
Yeah, I've always had a TV in the room, and then now, of course, it feels like everybody uses their phones as an alarm clock, so it's literally just sitting right there. So it's like you're scrolling, 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 thinking that you're gonna get yourself tired, but it probably actually wakes you up more than it makes you tired.
Yeah, I think you can kind of fall into that black hole, or that rabbit hole, where it's a never ending scroll. Or a lot of people, whether it's social media, some people watch Netflix, or streaming TV, and with that it's just one episode after another, never stops, and so you can just kind of get caught up and just keep on watching, and all of a sudden it's 2 a.m. or something. So that's not helpful. And then also just the light that's coming from the devices is that can mess with your circadian rhythm too, your internal clock.
Mm.
So that can make your body basically think that it's still earlier than it really is. So your body kind of holds off on producing the melatonin, and the hormones that are going to help us to get drowsy and fall asleep. Um, so so those are a couple reasons why device usage before bed is probably not the best idea. It can be kind of stimulating and keep you up.
Is there any time frame that you say that you should stop, like, using your device before you go to bed?
Yeah, so the general advice is like 1 to 2 hours before bed, if possible. So at least 60 minutes gives you enough time to get away from the device, and to do something that's a little bit more relaxing without having screens. So reading a book, or breathing exercises, or just things that are going to let you take a break from screens for a while, both for the light and for any content on the screens that might be kind of stimulating. Sometimes people tend to, for example, read news on the phone, like when you're scrolling through social media. And they've done studies that showed that when you look at negative news, so you look at, when you read negative news for even a few minutes, it can make your mood, it can impair your mood for up to like 6 hours afterward.
Wow.
So that's another reason when you wake up in the morning, a lot of people, the first thing they do is grab their phone, check the news, check the text, check the emails and everything. And if there's, kind of negative things on there, that can kind of set the tone for your whole day, where, if you're exposed to negative content, then, at least the first half of your day could have you just in a more negative mood.
Wow, that's really interesting. I mean, I'm just thinking about last night because there was a huge accident, like a 50-car pile up on I-25 because of the snow last night. And that was like one of the last things that I remember, because my fiance looks at news before we go to bed. But I don't think I necessarily had like a bad dream. I just like couldn't fall asleep last night. So, but I was also doing work in my bed, so that's not helpful either. But that makes a lot of sense. Like, that's really interesting, actually.
Yeah, and especially, I mean, the last couple of years have been, the news is full of pandemic, and people worrying about their health and their jobs and their finances and everything. And now we have Russia, Ukraine, so that's just, I mean, there's disturbing news and images and stuff all over the everywhere on the news and your social media and everywhere. So there's no shortage of negative things that we can view. So it's kind of just choosing, how to not letting them affect you too much, but choosing when you're exposed to them too. It's, if you view those things right before you go to sleep, that could make it harder for you to fall asleep or affect your, what you're dreaming about. If you wake up and see that first thing in the morning, you're not fully awake and you're not really prepared to process those things, and that can, affect you during the day. So, yeah, so it's kind of just choosing when and what to expose yourself to.
That's good. A good tip. I started, because you can put your phone on sleep. And so I started extending it because it was turning off at like 5 a.m. And then it's like notification. I hear it like vibrating. And, then I was like, oh my gosh. And then so I went through and like turned off a whole bunch of notifications, but then I extended the sleep time till 7 a.m. just so that I have like this pause of I can get up and my phone's not sitting there like vibrating or doing notifications left and right. Like, yeah.
That is a smart idea, because even the little buzz of the alerts probably gives you just like a little jolt of adrenaline, just, or because a lot of times the alerts, it's like, oh, should I check to see what the text is? Should I check to see what this is? And even that can be just kind of distracting. So do not disturb on the silence on the phone is a good tool to have.
I spoke to a woman the other day that she always recommends that people turn their phones off at night. And like, I mean, she talks more about the energy of like 5G and LTE and the actual energy that comes out of the phones. So she was saying, she's like, I recommend that people put them on the opposite side and turn them off. But I think that some of us, at least with me, like, I'm afraid I'm going to miss something important that happens. But then again, I wake up and it's just notifications. So there is something in that too.
Yeah. And it's interesting. So this is not my area of, I don't know a lot about this, but some people, there's something called EMF, so electromagnetic frequency, I think. And so all of our devices, so anything from our alarm clocks to there's all our electric devices basically put out these electromagnetic frequencies. And I think there is at least belief or some studies that show that when we have these kind of waves going around us, that our brain sort of tunes to the frequency of these waves or something like that. So basically, if you have all these devices kind of putting out these high frequency waves, your brain sort of picks up on that and gets tuned to those waves. So if you're trying to sleep, you're trying to calm down and stay calm. I think the belief is that, if your brain gets on these high frequency waves, it can be more stimulating to you. And so a lot of people will, recommend having as few electric devices in your bedroom as possible. And I think, either turn off your phone, or they have these like kind of cases that will block those waves when you put them in the cases. So that's the belief. I don't do it myself, but I think there's a lot of people who do, kind of believe in that. So it's definitely something to look into if you think that, if it's something interesting to you, but it's not something I did do myself, really.
Yeah, that's what she was talking about, was the electronic,
Magnetic
the EFT or whatever. Yeah. So, and I was like, oh, well, I didn't even think of that either. So yeah, totally whole different subject, but hey, you never know when it comes to sleep, right?
Exactly. A lot of different ways you can go with sleep.
Right. So if people want to find you and they want to work with you, how can they do that?
So the best way would be just our website. So the company, I own a company called Sleepably. And so you can go to sleepably.com. So that's just sleepably.com. So when you get on there, you can learn more about what we do. So it's myself, an adult sleep coach, and then we have 2 pediatric sleep coaches. So for parents whose children aren't sleeping well, they can help with that. So you can get on the website, you can learn more about what we do. You can schedule a free call with us with either adult or pediatric sleep consultant. Just spend 20 to 30 minutes telling us about your sleep issues, and we'll see if we're a good fit for you and kind of explain what we do. So that would be the best way to get in touch with us.
Awesome. Well, I did, in all the comments, I did put all your information. I put the link to actually Instagram, Facebook, and your website. So
Thanks. I
they
appreciate
can
that.
find you. Yeah. Any last minute thoughts?
Let's see. Basically, just I don't know. I mean, I think you just give one of the best. You just make sure that you're giving yourself enough opportunity to sleep. So a lot of times, when in our busy lives, we just kind of burn the candle at both ends and don't give ourselves time to get that rest. But it's just so important for mental health, for physical health, for your just how you feel during your days, and really, I mean, sleep impacts kind of all areas of our life. So if you can just make sure you're giving yourself enough opportunity, that's a good start, and that will just make sure that you're being the best version of you in your daily life.
Awesome. Well, I really appreciate you coming on to Mental Health Mondays and giving us all of these good tips and tricks about sleep.
Thanks. Yeah, it's always great to talk to you, and I appreciate you having me on here.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Well, that was another episode of Mental Health Mondays, where we talk to professionals in the mental health space, somebody who experiences or lives with a mental health challenge, or a mental health advocate. Man, I'm like thinking about sleep now. I don't know. But those were some great tools, tips, tricks. And if you need or want to find Seth, again, all of his information is in the comments. Make sure that you like, subscribe, share this if you're watching on YouTube or on Facebook. We can't do this without your help. We bring you lots of education. So you can sign up today to be a mental health warrior for only $20 or more per month. And that goes to all of our education and allows us to do all of this for you. Or if you need more resources or tools, maybe sleep's not what your challenge is right now, but you need more tools, just go to bccevolution.org and go to our programs. We have lots of different programs for those that are struggling. If you want to be an advocate or learn more about mental health, or if you want to just find more tools, more resources, we've got them for you. So thank you again for watching, and we'll see you next Monday.